Alright, this is a representation of Jay Gatsby. The first adjective to describe him is mysterious. Why, you may ask? It is because no one really knew his true story. They always made up stories about him, saying he was a murderer or something else, and no one really knew where he came from, and everyone wanted to know him. The first quote to describe him was, an elegant, young roughneck, a year or two over 30, whose elaborate formality of speech just made missed absurd, which is found in chapter 3, page 46. Right here, the eyes represent the green light in the book, which is very important, and the green light represents his dream and the life he wants with Daisy. Right here, the gun represents his past, so when he was young, he fought in the war, and that's when he fell in love with Daisy, right before he went to war. Also talking about the past, Nick says, can't repeat the past, he cried incredulously, and then Gatsby says, why, of course you can, found in chapter 6, page 110, and this describes how Gatsby wants to keep his past. He wants her back. He wants to relive what he had with her. Old sport is just a term Gatsby always used towards Nick. He'd always call him old sport. Another adjective to describe him, he was a gentleman. He had manners and knew how to carry himself. Right here, the alcohol does not represent he drank because Gatsby never ever drank, but he was a bootlegger, and the quote to back that up is, I picked him for a bootlegger the first time I saw him, and I wasn't far wrong, which is found in chapter 7, page 133. This right here is Gatsby's mansion, and it's a very big, luxurious mansion, and it's the quote to describe that is, his bedroom was the simplest room of all, except where the dresser was garnished with a toilet set of pure dull gold, which was found in chapter 5, page 97, and his mansion was just beautiful and extravagant. Another quote to describe him physically was his smile. So they talked about how he had a rare smile, and it says on page 48 of chapter 3, he had one of those rare smiles with the quality of eternal reassurance in it. And another adjective to describe him was that he was very wealthy. As a child, he was very poor, but he found his way, and he had riches afterwards. And then this heart right here, Daisy's in the center because that was his true love, as it says in chapter 8, page 140. Also, Gatsby was truly in love with Daisy right before he went to war. And the last quote to describe things about him was using his party hat, because Gatsby's parties are unbelievably luxurious. His swimming pool, his beach, crates of fresh oranges and lemon buffets, tents in the gardens overflowing at the feast, and a live orchestra playing under the stars, which is described throughout the book. His parties, his first party was described in chapter 3, and his parties were just extravagant and luxurious, and everyone wanted to be there. And this is what describes Jay Gatsby.
Body biography is on Jordan Baker. As you can see on the title, it is somewhat fancy. Now, the writing style of the title represents the social hierarchy she prefers to live in, and the hat and hair represents the decade, which was the 1920s. In the second part, you see a broken car. Now, the car represents a quote, in my opinion, the most important quote by her in the book, where she liked Nick because he was a careful driver. In chapter 9, she changes her mind, and she says, you said a bad driver was only safe until she met another bad driver. Well, I met another bad driver, didn't I? I mean, it was careless of me to make such a wrong guess. I thought you were rather an honest, straightforward person. I thought I was your secret pride. This is said in chapter 9, pages 134 through 135. Now, on the third part, it is seen as two characteristics of Jordan and two pictures. Now, two ways to describe Jordan is being cold-hearted, because she really shows emotions throughout the whole book. The mirror represents her being a narcissistic, because she only cares about herself. Now, the phone represents her being a gossiper, which is shown on chapter 1, page 10, where she says, a subdued, passionate murmur was audible in a room beyond, and Miss Baker leaned forward, unashamed, trying to hear. The murmur trembled on the verge of coherence, sank down, mounted excitedly, and ceased altogether. Now, this is the part where Daisy and Tom were arguing because Myrtle called during the middle of their dinner. Now, the final part is a magazine and a golf cart. Now, the magazine represents her fame, as said in page 9 in chapter 1. Its pleasing, contemptuous expression had looked out for me from many rotograph picture of the sporting life at Asheville and Hot Springs and Palm Beach. Now, her fame comes from golfing, which is shown in her other hand in the background.